me to start?
Please.
Okay. The vision of the future, I mean, it's really hard to get because starting out, right, I was trying to please everybody, right? Remember that? We're trying, like...
You never try to please me, just for the record.
I can't. It's impossible.
So it's not everybody you're trying to please.
All right, that's a good point. I wasn't trying to please him. But everybody has a different version of what the future is, right? Someone's 10 years is someone else's 50 years. And that took me a little while to realize because it's not sci-fi, right? If you go sci-fi, then it's a lot easier for people to take. But when you go, hey, this is going to happen 50 years in the future, they go, no, it's not, or yes, it is. So that was a big, lesson to get over, right? Are we going to be floating in cars, or are we going to still be on the road, and what are the tires made out of? And I also found big groups of people were different. So the designers seemed to take a more conservative approach, and the artists were like, go out, go out there. I looked for reference, right? We looked at movies and things like that. And the funny thing, I can't find one movie in which it is the future, but not sci-fi. Every movie has one element. So AI has robots, and hard to believe that they're going to look like that. Minority Report, well, they're reading minds. Another good one was District 9, right? Looked believable, looked realistic, but it was aliens. So we were trying to actually accomplish something that was pretty new. And that took a while. It took about 6 months. So I've talked about studying the past, to look at the future. And it took a lot of that. It took a lot of pushing and pulling. And then at some point it was just like, you know what? We can't make everyone happy. We have a vision of the future, and that's where we're going.
Why not go sci-fi if everyone's tempted to go there?
I think Call of Duty resonates because it's believable and relatable, right? And it's always been one of the strengths of the franchise. So I think the drive to find something relatable and believable and delivering on what a future that we can relate to, that can strike sort of a zeitgeist, and that came, I think, crystallized through the research that we saw that was happening, right? I mean, some of the things we found through research of what's going on in the military today and around the world was more fantastic than even the things that we were coming up with.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I think that time period and that ability to keep it rooted means that our fans, ourselves, it's not that fictional leap to a science fiction world you can't relate to.
I agree with all that, and I think there's a couple things more. And one, I think the most important thing is that it's different. Like I said, I can't find it. I can't find it in movies, and I haven't really seen it in games, because there's always something, right, that just says, you went sci-fi, so there. And this was a real challenge, right, to people believe it. And I think the thing that is interesting to me is the fact that it's almost invisible now. People don't. They're playing, looking at the game and playing the game, and they believe it. They don't go, and that's just sort of the way that when they're done playing, or what's part of the game right now, it's believable to them, and that's been a real challenge. And
I think you referenced District 9, and I think we use that as a great reference, right? Outside of the aliens, which was clearly science fiction, they had futuristic weapons. They had mechs. They had a mega slum, and you believed all of it. I bought into all of that, right? That was a production design of a future setting that I was all in on. Like, I believed it all.
Well, you believed in the aliens.
Well, they actually were. You laugh, but like I empathized with the alien child that was getting abused by his father, right? If you can immerse the audience.
I'm not going there.
If you can immerse the audience in the fiction that deep that you're attaching to the character, and I think if we can do that in a space that's not science fiction, but future Call of Duty, we're going to have found a really great balance.
Did you really relate to that alien child?
I said I empathized.
It's too big of a word.
Can you get a dictionary? Exactly.
Yeah. I empathize with it as well. Actually, it's coming in the next game.
I empathize for the viewers of this interview.
Yeah, me too. I got to tell you, I still get the team asking, like, is this in or is this out? People are starting to understand it a lot more. It's important that our art director understood, right? But we get the whole world, but there are times when we have to actually come back and look at something. And I spend a lot of time with concept art to just say we went too far, we pulled it in. It's been really hard to explain the vision, the artistic vision of it. We put together a huge online production design so people could understand. We did put together rules like here are the shapes, here are the sizes, here are some of the engines that cars will use, and what are the materials that people use. Tons of that stuff. But there are times like, not too long ago, I was bringing up, hey, want to put this this giant blimp that will go 70,000 feet up in the sky, and everybody's like, giant blimps, right? But it's based on reality. It's based on seeing the Air Force is doing that, building stuff that's made out of some sort of different types of carbon fibers, and they really plan on doing that because they can carry huge payloads. But that was one of those things, like a few other things have been really hard for people to understand why that's in there. But I think that once we start to see the world come together, you go, oh, okay, that's more believable.
If you pick up an article, say from 30, 40 years ago, about what they project will happen today, in many cases it's inspirational, but largely we haven't accomplished many of those things, right? There's a great article about what LA is going to be. It was an article in 1975 about what LA was going to be today.
They were so
and
wrong.
It was crazy. It was spaceships and mega skyscrapers, and so we believe that there's an opportunity to look back and say, hey, based off of where technology is going today, what's believable and real but grounded, and so we know that we're not about aliens. We're not about space time travel. We're not about crazy, earth-shattering laser beams, right? We know what's too far, right? It's the gray space when you start talking about robotics and genome implant and biomechanical changes to the human body. Like that's where it gets gray, and that's where I think the research helps guide us.
I think we're conservative. And the reason why I say that is because nobody could have predicted the PC, right? The computer. Well, maybe someone did. But if I could, right, that there's going to be some major upheaval that will change the world at some point. And I don't know what that is. So what we've done is we've probably stayed a little bit more conservative. But there are things that people are like, whoa, that's out there, and they're based on things that we see, like the exoskeleton, right? In the very beginning, when we started, when just a few of us were studying it, we were the only ones that knew that it existed. And now with Elysium coming out and some of the other movies and it being used in medical facilities, and people are starting to walk. There's a TED Talk on it. Now people are going, oh, it's more believable. What makes it unbelievable when I saw Elysium is that they nailed the damn thing into the guy, right? I'm like, who's going to allow that? You didn't even take your shirt off, right? So we made it that we felt it was much more believable. But yeah, I think we're kind of conservative in that, but it makes it a little more believable.
Well, and I think we're not the only group who struggles with it, right? I mean, I remember when we first started in research, there were two predominant predictions of what 50 years looks like from now, right? And one of them was singularity, like literally the man and machine coming together to form the cyborg. And the complete opposite of that were people who were saying, hey, technology is so advanced that we're going to bomb ourselves back 500 years, right? We are literally going to use technology to our own harm. So either we're going to become singularity or we're going to set ourselves back in time. And that just highlights that, there's a wide range of what next 50 years could look like. Yeah. And so we bring it back to what we believe is believable and relatable and gritty and something that is very Call of Duty.
There are some things that people now sort of take a little for granted, meaning they're starting to see helicopters that were in Avatar with the rotors in circles. And there's sort of toy models of drones that do it that way. So although there aren't helicopters like that, we said, well, there's enough of that out there that people believe that will happen. But when you talk to our futurists, right, what he says, what the few of them have said is like, we can't predict any more than 25 years out because we have no idea what's out there. And so one of the things I asked was, well, do you believe in mechs? He goes, shit, we'll have mechs in 15 years. But he said, in 25, 30 years, we could be beaming people around the world. I don't know. So we made sure that, some of those things that were actually science fiction icons, we stayed away from. So you won't see the traditional mech. Even though that may happen, people automatically go sci-fi. So we kind of try to stay away from that.
But it sounded like a walking tank in one of the videos.
Yes.
What's the difference?
There's right now we know that NASA has a walking tank that goes on. It's public knowledge. I'm sorry. Look.
It is now, anyways.
Yeah. Should we say that?
No, whatever. Yeah, let's say it. I'm going to tell the story. It's a great story, right? And so I think this highlights sometimes where Glen and I come at things, right? So he has this idea for a walking tank, and it looks like this mechanical spider
with wheels.
With wheels.
There's a reason for that too.
It was sort of like that spider from that Western with
Wild Wild West.
Wild Wild West, exactly. Like, imagine Glen gets a hold of the Wild Wild West.
That's where you went.
And puts some armor on it. And I thought he was a nut, right? Which happens regularly. But in this case, I thought he was more nutty than usual. And we had an opportunity to go down to NASA. And completely coincidentally, they took us into the research center and they said, hey, we've got to show you this prototype of a robot that we're going to send out to mine asteroids. We're literally going to launch this to asteroids that have rare minerals, like, and it's going to bring them back. And it was this freaking sick-legged tank. I mean, it was literally...
With wheels.
It was literally, I mean, it was very literal to the concept that I was calling crazy. And so it just shows you there's a lot of really amazing things happening out there today that when it's fiction to us and an idea on a piece of paper, it's actually being built down the road.
That was also looking at some of the smaller drones that they're making right now, and they're made to look like spiders and things like that, so they can go upstairs. And the idea behind that one was, well, they still need to get on roads. They still need to drive. So we have the wheels and so they can go on the road. And tanks nowadays do 80 miles an hour. And so that could go on the road, but then it could go, transform a little bit into this thing that can now go up hills and go into any kind of terrain. Yes, I felt quite vindicated. There are things that we do in the game, like we have something like the walking tank, which I do have to listen. If he believes that maybe it's not going to happen, there are others that are out there. So what we'll do is we'll take something like that and then we'll surround it in a setting that people go, oh, there's a store and there's garbage can, there's all that stuff. I get it. Okay, I believe that more. And it will make sounds that maybe we understand a little bit more. And if I have a background that's a little bit crazier, you don't want to have a walking tank and all of that. So there's a lot of ways we're doing it sort of in the context of the game. And then as we get them into the game and they start to believe the world, taking more chances by the end of the game. It gets a little bit more because you believe the world, you're already in it.
When you have these great ideas that allow really innovative gameplay, right? When you can actually say, hey, we've never been able to do this before, this bit of future technology, this change, right? That's cool. The other cool thing, because we've been on this product, on this vision, on this game goal for 2.5 years now, we're seeing things today.
I didn't even realize I picked up my licorice. My Twizzler. Sorry.
What's most exciting right now is because we've had nearly 3 years to develop this game for the next gen, a lot of the ideas that we were really researching and even came up with 2.5 years ago are now making headlines, right? And that's pretty rewarding, right? To say, when the players pick this game up for the first time, and that CNN or BBC headline that they read about last week about this new piece of technology is actually in the game that day, I think that's pretty awesome, and it happens a lot.
Yeah, and we're finding they're not thinking that, oh well, it's here today, so I don't believe, so maybe you're behind. They're actually saying, oh, I see it here, and yours is a little bit more advanced, so I believe it. No matter who we talk to, whatever experts, whatever, they always say there's going to be boots on the ground. You just can't fight a war from the air, and you just can't fight a war from from sitting in your chair with a controller or whatever. Which is a lot of the drone stuff. There are guys on the ground, and so that's what we believe, and I think that's what happens. We're seeing it from the position of that guy that's on the ground, and I think the military believes there'll be less of them on the ground. That's why they're a lot more highly skilled, but in the end, no matter who we talk to, said the same thing. So we have drones and we have things like that, but there's so many high concepts in our game that we need you to suspend belief or to believe in this and this and this and this, that we didn't want to throw too many out there. Like, we know that fusion will likely happen in 50 years. But we started dabbling in that, and helium-3 and all that. We're like, that's another concept that they need to believe, and we just felt like walking robots fighting next to our walking tanks and things like that might just start to feel a little too Star Wars. That's just a taste thing. I do believe there'll be robots out there. What they look like, we just decided not to go that deeply into that.
So I think a lot of fans are going to learn about this game and think, like, we already have been through this whole thing about Call of Duty predicting the future, but a realistic version of the future with Black Ops 2.
Right.
So can you talk about the development of this game and how you wanted to separate it from Black Ops 2's version of the future?
Not as much as you might think. Now, we do talk with Mark Lamia and his designers and artists as much as possible, and that's so that we don't duplicate things. But I think we realized after the first 6 months or so, when we had this huge amount of information and we had sort of a vision that if we just kind of follow that and we use Sledgehammer style, that we will be different. And that's where we went. It's almost like two artists create a landscape, and one's going to be so much different than the other. And I think there's enough differences between the two that, well, I know there's enough differences between the two that they both can exist.
With all respect for what I thought was a great game from those guys, it's not the same universe, it's not the same time frame, it's not the same technology.
Different language, everything about it.
Yeah, we've gone in a direction with the Advanced Soldier and the EXO that's unique to us in a pretty innovative way. So I think fans should get excited about both. And for those who played Black Ops 2, like I did, loved it. But Advanced Warfare, it's very different.
I'd say odds are good that you guys are someday going to work on a game called Advanced Warfare 2. Right?
Yeah.
If I was a gambling man,
okay.
Do you see it as the Advanced Warfare brand is always in this time frame, or is it conceivable that it could eventually bleed into more sci-fi stuff further out?
I think, look, sorry, I didn't mean to jump in front of you.
Go right ahead.
I would just say the effort and energy from the team on Advanced Warfare right now is so heavy, and we are driving so hard. Like, it's incredible. It really is. I, for one, haven't had a chance to think of what happens beyond this, right? I mean, in all honesty, like, we are going to do everything we can. We're going to move mountains to deliver the signature Call of Duty experience from Sledgehammer Games. And then we'll see what the future brings. You, on the other hand...
I've thought about it.
I've thought about it.
Well, I mean, I almost have to, because I have to think of the ending of the game all the time and what happens, and like, all right, I can't do something that just wipes, I can't have the world go away. I can't wipe out certain stuff. So there are times when you think about it, not a heck of a lot, but definitely there has to be some thinking that of not ruining the story and everything, or the world, so you can't have another game. So we're keeping it around. We're keeping it in a place where another game can exist.